Hello, everybody. This is Loren with Allied Landscape on behalf of the CLCA. Today, we're covering safety program development. We're going to wait a couple minutes to let everybody kind of trickle in, but we're going to get started pretty quick here. I'll remind everybody that we're going to do the best we can to get to the end of this and have a little bit of time for questions and answers, but oftentimes the content has us run a full hour, so we will circle back with everybody who uses the chat feature. So if you have any questions, please get them out there. I'll make sure to follow up with everybody on a case-by-case scenario, and then I'll try to do the best I can to put it out to the group if some of those questions are just general in nature. Okay, with that, we're going to get started. So I want to start by saying thank you. I want to thank all of our sponsors at East Bay CLCA. We can't do what we do without that support, and it's much appreciated. You can take a look at the volunteer list on who helps out at the CLCA. A big plug to Laura, who helps put these events on. Beyond that, there's a lot of volunteer membership in terms of what makes up the board. I would encourage anybody to reach out and participate in the CLCA chapter you're coming from. I think it's a great opportunity to show leadership, and it's just a great place to network. So I'd encourage you to do just that. In terms of our sponsors, again, we can't do what we do without them. A part of what makes up the volunteer CLCA board is a few of those associate members. So you can see Paul Wong from Imperial Sprinkler is acting as this year's president, and we thank him for stepping up and taking that role. It's always a good mix of vendors and contractors that make up the CLCA, and those people need to be working part and parcel or hand in hand to get the jobs done that we need to get done. So definitely thank you to all of the sponsors. We really appreciate your support. The CLCA Insurance Solutions, Delta Bluegrass, Devil Mountain, Ewing Irrigation, Horizon, Hunter, Rainbird, Stop Waste, Imperial again, Site One Vision, the Lumber Baron, the Urban Farmer Store, and Water Savers Irrigation. We do really appreciate your support. The next thing I wanted to touch on is some of the local training opportunities that are available to us. From a state level, we have the CLCA that offers the Certified Water Manager program. I would really strongly suggest everybody look at this program. I think the Bay Area has a unique flavor, just like any other part of the country. And I think we've got a really strong horticultural group in the East Bay chapter and the greater Bay Area. I think we need to work together to be known for what's important. And what's important in California is definitely water conservation. What's important in California is a regenerative approach to landscape design and landscape management. So I'd encourage everybody to take a look at what the CLCA is offering at the state level. I would really encourage you to look at what Rescape is offering. I think they've been doing a fantastic job over the last 5 years. They have a regular guest speaker, Dave Phelps, that I think really offers cutting edge guidance in terms of regenerative landscape practices, and that's either design build, design, or the management side of things. So just a great opportunity there. So a plug for Rescape. And finally, a couple local colleges, Las Positas College and Foothill College, both do a great job. We've got a couple courses that are available through Las Positas College, pictured on the screen here. I'd strongly encourage you to sign up for those virtual classes. Great opportunity regarding turf and landscape management, as well as plant identification. Okay, so the agenda today. We're going to cover what it takes to put together a safety program. We're going to cover the why, motivators behind it. We're going to cover the how. And for us at Allied Landscape, we really concentrate on a four-pillar approach to our safety program. And then lastly, I'm going to touch the overarching, big, growing regulatory requirements tied to COVID-19. By and large, I'm going to breeze through that because it's ever changing and there's a lot of requirements. So we're going to just touch on that in the final slides of this presentation, and then a quick closing. Again, my name is Loren McIrvin with Allied Landscape. I am the owner. A little bit about myself. I grew up in the landscape industry. My mom and dad were both landscapers. My dad was kind of the design build guy, and my mom had the landscape maintenance side of things. So I got to learn early on about what it is to install from a design build perspective and then manage it on the tail end. I think as it relates to our topic today, when it comes to safety, I will say that safety does not come natural to me, nor does it come natural to a lot of folks that grew up in this industry. I'll tell you, I have fond memories of me being a little kid driving around in the back of a truck and driving around in big property backyards and throwing out the valves where they go, throwing out the pipe along trenched lines in big backyards. So when it comes to safety, it really takes a lot of energy for me. It's not in my nature. It was not something that I grew up with. If anything, I grew up with just the opposite. I grew up with a dad and a mom that were really about getting things done as efficiently and as fast as possible and taking care of our employees. But it was not, they never thought about it on the front end. They never thought about how important safety is when it comes to taking care of those employees. It was all about creating relationships and trying to do right by those folks that worked alongside of us and helped us grow that family business. But it really lacked the forethought and effort into setting up a good safety program on the front end to take care of those folks. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. I think when I think of this slide, I think raised in the Bay Area, and I have a unique perspective and appreciation for local landscape industry. I want to offer to everybody that works in the Bay Area, if you need help, please reach out to me. I think I love nothing more than talking to landscapers. I wouldn't be where I am today without the help of a lot of folks in the Bay Area that I reached out to. That includes competitors, that includes peers, that includes vendors. I think we're all in it together. And I think we're in a position of trying to up the level that we offer in the Bay Area as it relates to landscape care and as it relates to landscape installations. And I think the more we can help each other, the more we can work with each other, the better off we are. A little bit about my company to give you some perspective on where we're coming from. Staff numbers, we're hovering around 175 employees. We are friendly, we are professional, we're certified. That's important to us. That's part of our culture. Primary services offered are landscape management with a focus on water conservation and best green management practices. The area, we cover the greater Bay Area and the Central Valley. Locations are throughout the Bay Area. Our team developed core values are really simple. It comes down to we care, we work, we lead, we grow. We're very important, and we developed that as a team at the latter part of 2019, and I'm proud to have done that together, and it's something that we live every day at Allied. So in terms of introduction and our service approach and our culture, because this is an important piece as it relates to safety, is safety has to be first. That was not part of our company when I started this. This is, again, not part of my nature, but the concept more and more has become more and more important as my company gets bigger and as I work longer and longer with great people side by side in keeping them safe, that we start conversations and that we think about safety prior to efficiency, prior to profitability, right? I think that's a really important thing when we're talking about safety programs, that conversations, how we market internally and externally, it really needs to start with safety. So everything starts with safety and care of the team members and our customers. Second, we're efficiency driven, and that is in a teamwork approach. We work hard every day to be as efficient as possible. We remain focused on continuous improvement and in systems, processes, and getting things done. We're committed to doing things right. We aspire to lead our team, customers, and the industry into doing the right thing for people, for pets, and for the planet. It's a broader approach to landscape design. It's a broader approach to landscape management that looks beyond just the aesthetics, and it really starts to think about function. It really starts to think about the amount of chemicals that are required to manage that landscape, the amount of green waste that is a byproduct of that landscape. It really is a shift in how we do things in the landscape industry, and I'm proud to be a part of that cutting edge group that is really trying to put the right plant in the right place and trying to think about the bigger picture as it relates to what we do on a day-to-day basis. Lastly, we're a relationship-focused customer service company. We create, maintain, and grow meaningful relationships by staying focused on what's important to the customer. Typically is the case that's saving money, reducing liabilities, and improving the value of their landscape asset. Why have a safety program? In terms of motivators, from my perspective, it has everything to do with improved teamwork. It's about earning the trust of your team members, creating an inclusive environment around productivity, and trying to foster an ownership mentality. If we can create a sense of trust between us and our team members to where everybody feels like they're really being taken care of, that we're honest from the top down, and that everybody understands that we're really trying to take care of each other, it extends beyond safety. It will bleed out into productivity. It'll bleed out into innovative ideas. But you can't do that without fostering that sense of trust and transparency with your staff. And once you do, and once you create that environment of inclusion to where people can raise their hand and say, I think we can do this. I think this is a different approach. It's amazing how fast your company will evolve. This happens on a regular basis at Allied Landscape. Just recently, we had a crew supervisor reach out, and we have over 40 crew supervisors reach out and say, you know, I think our safety meeting, if we could just make a quick tweak to that, if we can tweak the time of day we do it, I think it would benefit us all in this way. Within a week, we made that change, and we made sure that everybody within our company knew where the idea came from and explained why we're doing it to try to foster that ownership mentality. It's critical. Secondarily, in terms of motivators, improved employee retention. Employees want to work with a team that they feel like they're being taken care of, where they're respected, where we push them to grow. So I think employee retention is really important. If they feel recognized, if they feel cared for, if they feel like they can be productive, that is just human nature. That's exactly what people need. They need to feel like they're part of something. They need to feel like they can be productive, that they can be creative. I think too often in the landscape industry, based on the type of work we do, it's heavily repetitive, at least in the management side of things, but even in the design build side of things, we end up in a situation where we're digging trenches thousands of feet long, and that's behind a machine for hours on end. The idea of being reduced as a human to a part of a machine is not healthy. Creating that environment that somebody feels more than just being attached to a backpack blower, or more than a stand-on loader, or a ride-on trencher. That's just human. That's a human nature need that we should be trying to fulfill on all levels. Improved customer retention. Customers want to work with a company that has happy, trained, and tenured employees. It just goes hand in hand. So when we're talking about motivators tied to a safety program, I think that just makes sense. And then lastly, improved profitability. Reduce insurance rates. Everybody has an XMOD rate here. And depending on the amount of accidents you have in a given year, that will have a negative impact on how much your insurance premium is. Making sure everybody understands and then working towards keeping those rates down should be a company-wide effort. Property damage, equipment loss, these are all kind of tied to our safety program. Lastly, when it comes to motivators, it's family first. And this is something that a lot of Allied team members hear a lot, that if somebody needs to take off of work, one of the first responses they get from me or their direct supervisor is family first. You got to take care of that. And if that's what you're living, if that's what you believe in, we need to do a little bit different and a little bit better than my folks did. And we need to make sure that all of our team members can go home to their kids in the afternoon the same way they left them in the morning. And we need to be intentional about it. Of course, my parents wanted that for the team members that we had at our company. But at the end of the day, how intentional, or was it even in the capacity of that company to really be looking at what can we do at the very beginning of the day to keep everybody safety minded so they can go home the same way they showed up? Really important. So family, I think, is the biggest motivator. In terms of the how and diving into this 4-pillar approach, I'm going to touch on culture a little bit first. An effective company culture around safety is key to any successful program. We need to be intentional. We need to be honest. We need to learn from our mistakes. I started my company in 2005, and I've been working in the landscape industry from the mid-90s. What I could say is these things take time. It's not easy. It is a slow chipping away at trying to do better every day. And it is a slow march against the tide. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back. There are always setbacks. The question is, do we learn from those little failures? Do we take those failures and not blow up, but really try to get at the why and ask why over and over again as these incidents come up, and be intentional about how we might avoid those issues moving forward? I think when anything happens, it should really be used as a training opportunity, right? Above all else, care. And that works right into our, just kind of our core values. Care is our first and most important. We care for our employees. Our employees care for our customers. We care for the planet. That is just part of what we live in, is an important part of our culture. And I would suggest to everybody on the call here or on this webinar, finding what's important and believing it and living it is everything in building a culture, and it's incredibly important. Safety first, everything starts with safety and care for our team members and customers. That was on an earlier slide, but I think it's worth reiterating. Next, make safety first. Work towards making safety the first thing that is talked about at every meeting, in every discussion, and make sure it's part of your company values. I think this is important. And again, this is something that personally we're trying to work on at Allied Landscape. At the end of the day, we talk all about getting things done. And I think that's human nature, to figure out, okay, here's the task. What are the pieces that need to get done? And the performing the task, creating the widget, providing the service really gets broken down into a few physical tasks that need to be accomplished. But to put that aside and to start the conversation with, hey, everybody's safe. How's everything going? Everybody do everything they're supposed to do safety-wise? Okay, great. How are we doing on that job? Are we keeping up with the labor budget? How are we doing with the material budget? How are we doing on schedule? What do we need to talk to our customers about in terms of expectations? It should start with safety. And as I mentioned, this isn't something that comes natural to me, and it's something that just needs to be worked at on a daily basis. Next is safety and leadership. Everybody on all levels must lead by example. Whether it's a simple conversation, whether it's coaching, recognition, personal actions with dress code and a cone program. I'll give you an example. In terms of dress code, whether it's the owner of the company, whether it is a senior account manager, whether it is the crew supervisor on the job, we're expected when we get out of our vehicles to have a safety vest on. The odds of the owner getting hit by a car are pretty slim. I don't do a lot of site walks, but I think the intent is our customers need to know, our employees need to know that we value it enough to put on that bright yellow or bright orange vest and have that be a statement for what we believe in. Is it required in most cases? I might be meeting at a clubhouse and I'm walking straight into a clubhouse. Probably not. But the concept is to really push that and value that, right? Secondarily, I think an anecdote we're sharing is our cone program. I had the opportunity to visit a peer company on the other side of the country, Level Green Landscape out of Maryland. And I was able to meet with those folks and say, hey, I noticed that everybody in your company is putting out a cone behind your car. And they got into a story that was in their past that it was something small. Somebody before backup cameras and before backup alerts got hit and they shouldn't. And what an easy thing for all of us at Allied Landscape to carry around a safety cone. And every time we park, we put a safety cone behind or in front of our car, depending on how we parked. And it forces us to grab that cone and put it back in the trunk or back in the bed of the truck. And it gives us a chance to really take the time to look behind our vehicle and not just take off. What a small thing we can do to make sure somebody doesn't get hurt in that instance. So I would suggest finding what works for your company and share what works for your company. We're always trying to look for ideas that are just small, easy things to do to avoid injury. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the folks on this line to share as a group. If you've got a great idea, we're all in this to take care of each other. I mean, humans need to support each other. They need to take care of each other. And if we can't start with safety and sharing some ideas, I think we're missing the point as human beings. Lastly, I want to talk about safety and HR. Make safety part of the conversation from recruiting through to separation. The concept is that whether it's a job posting, whether it's a job description, whether it's in the interview process, whether it's the onboarding process, where we're really doing a great job at introducing all of our values to a new employee, or if it's handbooks or reviews, that safety plays a big part in that. Absolutely necessary from an HR perspective. Next, from safety in management, dispatch and reception. This is really important. And what I'm referring to is whether you're a design build company or you are a management company, that you really need to have somebody responsible. Dispatch those employees, receive them in the morning. Make sure, whether you're like Allied and we start at 6 a.m. in the dark, or you're starting at 7 or 8 a.m., that there's somebody responsible for receiving those employees and making sure that we do a great reception. And in the afternoon, a great dispatch in the morning, and then a great reception in the afternoon. And I'm going to dig in a little bit more in a later slide. Next is safety and management. We need to think about the environments and the equipment that our employees are exposed to. We need to make sure we're regularly inspecting our yards, our trucks, our trailers, the equipment. We need to make sure that's all in good working order. We need to look at all of the different environments that we work in and identify those hazards prior to us starting work. That just needs to be a part of what we do. I'll give you an example. If we're starting at 6 a.m., you can imagine that depending on the yard we're dispatching from in the Bay Area, that some of those yards might have a little bit of ice on the blacktop. It's going to be a little bit dark in the morning at those yards. So are those yards lit? Are those yards free of ice? Are we mitigating issues that are dangerous prior to the team members walking into that yard? Really critical. Next, safety in management, and I'm talking about on the job now. Making sure that all of our jobs are done, that we're starting to look at safety before quality and efficiency. We touched on that before, but the concept that when we show up to a job, whether we're inspecting maintenance quality control, or we're out there seeing how far along a construction build is or a design build job is, that when we walk out there as a manager, that we're starting with safety implications first. And then we dive into, oh, hey, listen, this doesn't look right. I don't think this is going to meet customer expectations. Why did you drop the materials over here? Now we have to haul them to the other side of the property. Those efficiency and quality control issues and communication issues for the customers, they really need to be secondary. We really need to get to the job and start there. Because if our teams as a whole start to feel like safety will be the first thing talked about, will be the first thing looked at, that will be top of mind and will have a meaningful difference. Next, safety and marketing. And this is internal marketing and external marketing. The idea is make sure safety is included in marketing in terms of branding, in terms of signage, in terms of social media messages. I think as I move along, I start to understand in the history of my company how important it is to build that culture. And you can't build culture and you can't build a family, a team around silence. We really need to champion what's working right, and we need to do some internal marketing around that. That could be as simple as getting on a call once a week and talk about what worked and what didn't. Who should be recognized for doing something? That could just be a simple group call. We've got the technology to be able to do that. For other companies, that might be a formalized newsletter. That might be an internal Facebook page. But the concept of making sure that our team knows that it's valued at the company, that we are marketing that internally and externally, is really important. The next pillar is recognition. Recognition is an effective, needs to be a part of any effective safety program. We need to focus on our successes, our failures, and we need to focus on making improvements every day. I'm going to go over a few programs that we're introducing and some that we have in place, but these are really exciting and I'm happy to share them. A safety card program. The concept is that all operational team members participate in a safety reward/discipline program. Management works together with operations to identify both good and bad behaviors that impact safety. We conduct a random what's inspected is respected tour once a month. This is really important. You know, some of these old sayings I've been hearing my entire life as it relates to the green industry, and this is one of them, that what's inspected is respected. Origin, I'm unsure, but I can tell you, if you're not inspecting what you hold dear, then I wouldn't expect your results to be fantastic. It's just human nature to really pay attention to the bare minimum. We are all overworked, and the concept of making sure that we're trying to do the best we can with the time we have available. As humans, we will automatically default to what's going to get us into trouble or what's going to benefit us with that kind of carrot and stick reward system, right? So I think it's really important for us to have kind of a what's inspected is respected tour once a month formally and monitor behavior daily. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the safety card program on the next slide. But conceptually speaking, the idea is that we identify good behaviors and bad behaviors, and we celebrate the good, and we recognize the bad, and we work towards mitigating some of those behaviors the best we can as a team versus everybody pointing at one guy. Next is a quarterly yard barbecues. All operational teams have a quarterly yard barbecue to discuss safety and efficiency. If the yard is gone the quarter without having avoidable damages, incidents, and lost equipment, we attach raffle prizes to those. I think what this does is it creates a sense of collaboration, and we're all in it together. And if we've got a chance to have some fantastic raffle prizes at our quarterly safety barbecue, what an opportunity. But if what we're doing is we're not being safe and for the course of a quarter and we're losing equipment, or we had a few avoidable issues, well, then we can't necessarily have raffles because that money has now been spent on what will inevitably be insurance premiums, replacing equipment, replacing and fixing property damage. Those are all part of it. The next is end of year zero time loss field trip. And this is a big one. And this is one that we're introducing in this coming year, that all operational team members that qualify for this field trip, it requires all of us to have zero time lost. But we're talking about a humongous investment where we bring all of our operations to some fantastic seats at a local football game or soccer game, and something that's really impactful and that everybody holds dear. I think that's exciting to do, and I think it's just time and money well spent. So more on the recognition. In terms of how we break up our safety card system, the green card is an accomplishment. This is for reporting unsafe situations that can result in accidents, innovative safety ideas, safety leadership behavior. And then beyond that, we get into a series of warnings. When we get into the yellow, these are minor things like careless behavior, not reporting signs seen on the job that were just obvious, truck organizational issues. excessive use on a cell phone, just minor behaviors that need to be identified to work towards will end up in a negative card. An orange card would be things that we consider just more negligence on a higher level that really need to be dealt with seriously. And then finally, the red card is something that everything stops, and we do a stop and train and make sure that if a red card goes out at Allied, that we shut down Allied and we talk about what's going on. And we, in the moment, identify the issue and try to get to the cause and understand how to mitigate that issue. But the idea is creating a little bit of internal pain for the company to make sure that everybody stops, breathes, and recognizes it's not all about profit, not all about efficiency, it's not all about customer attention. It's folks going home with all their fingers. It's folks going home the same way they showed up. We work in a dangerous industry. It's serious. And I think taking the few minutes to shut down the company and make sure that we all recognize the moment and we make sure that all eyes are on the situation really has a big impact and will really start showing measurable differences. Next is the third pillar, and this is best management practices and best available technologies. Now, in terms of best management practices, it's not lost on me that every company is a little bit different in size and what they can accomplish. Applying these best management practices need to be manageable. And what I would say is, depending on the size of your company, some are manageable and some are not. The good news is at the small companies that I worked at, it was very easy to do training for a group of 30. It was very easy to manage a group of 30 and make them feel and understand everything that is important. Once you start getting to a certain size, you need to have additional help to try to get those messages out, and things become a bit diluted. So regardless of the size of your company, and my family company, when I started in it, was all of 5 people. So I have worked in very small companies, and I have worked with some of the largest companies in the country. And what I would say is you just need to find what works for you. Excuse me. So best management practices. Have frequent trainings for all. Absences should not impact covering any training. The concept is there that we should have a series of training that needs to be done that everybody needs to see. So if we have an absence by a crew supervisor or a landscape maintenance technician or an irrigation technician, we need to make sure that their direct supervisor, once they return, goes over that training. We need to be very intentional about our trainings, and it's not about getting signatures at a weekly tailgate meeting to fulfill your obligation to OSHA or Cal OSHA. It's not what it's about. It's about really learning. It's about making sure people know what they need to know to stay safe. So I think the important point for me in terms of frequent training is absences should not impact covering a training. It needs to be covered, and we need to document that. Beyond that, we need to have a formalized written program with standard operating practices on all aspects of work. This is difficult to create, but with the amount of technology that we have available to us now, very convenient. Creating short videos in the moment on how we do things, what an opportunity to be able to use what is essentially a computer in our hands to videotape and store simple SOPs tied to how we start a mower, how we operate a mower, how we store a mower. What a great opportunity. What I would say is when I started this company, I did not have the bandwidth to write up 3-page SOPs tied to running a 30-inch mower or running a 36-inch mower or any host of equipment that we use, or transporting plants or unloading a vehicle. But over the course of time, if you pick away at a little bit and you commit to it, you can get that done. And what I would suggest as an interim is these short little videos. So I would challenge everybody to make sure that we are intentional about how we do everything and document how we do everything for the sake of consistency and for the sake of safety and productivity. I think we need to track everything, but you got to leverage technology. If you're not leveraging technology, it's just too much admin work. And I think with the advent of apps like Google Forms, where we can create a form on the fly and have everybody kind of enter things relatively easily into their phone as a web form, I think there's humongous opportunities there. And we can start to track more and understand what is occurring and look for the trends and look for how we need to operate a little bit differently. I'll give you an example. Again, a landscape management focused company, Allied is, but I think we end up breaking windows with line trimmers. And this is something that every landscape management company deals with. And they deal with it in different ways, whether that is a modification to the equipment itself, if it's a modification in training, if it is a little bit of both. You've got to find what is impacting your company most and really focus a flashlight on it, develop those SOPs, and make sure that we're training to the issues that we're encountering. But you can't do that without some type of data to show trends. Next, we need to inspect and review frequently. What's inspected is respected. Again, that phrase. Incentivize good behavior, discipline bad behavior. We need to stay committed to a continual improvement. That is part of lean management. That is part of just evolving, just changing. Change is inevitable. How we change and how we learn from the past will kind of lay our future out in front of us. So how we learn from our mistakes and failures is just really critical. Next, have a dedicated safety manager or a safety committee or a yard inspector. Essentially, this is anybody who wants more responsibility. And what I would suggest to everybody on this line is that you have people in your ranks, whether you have 3 employees or you have 300 employees, there are people in your ranks that want to do more, that they want to be challenged, that they want to grow. What I would suggest is it's a small ask for a 3-person company to have that crew supervisor, or maybe it's the new guy. Take a look at the yard with a checklist that you develop. Simple checklist, take a picture every week, email me the photos and show me the checklist. Let's take a look at how we're doing on the yard. That's a 3-man crew, right? That's a 3-person company. That is doable. What I would suggest is find somebody within the company that can take on just a little bit more or wants to take on a little bit more and let them champion that. Very important. Have an incident stop and train program. We touched on this a little bit before, but the concept is that if we're finding a trend, if it is the 3rd line trimmer accident in a month or in a year or whatever is your threshold, that we really stop and say, what's going on? We all need to really think about this. And you've got to stop productivity and you've got to focus on safety. This will impact profitability. There's no doubt about it. But what I would suggest is when your operations managers have to stop everything they're doing and have to run around and do a stop and train for every one of their subordinates or team members, that becomes painful. And that becomes a necessary evil of making sure that we don't have this issue come up again. So creating that internal pain and making sure that everybody knows that the company is willing to stop or reduce profitability to get ahead of safety is a big deal. It's a marginal impact because everybody works very fast to get it done. It's something that should be part of any program, in my opinion. Have an internal company news system or a way to share or recognize good behavior. At Allied Landscape, we have a Monday call where all of our managers get on the line and we talk about who are we recognizing, but we're very intentional about recognizing them for very certain things. It's not about saying, hey, this guy did a great job. No, it's about saying that this guy did a great job for specifically this behavior, so everybody understands what behaviors you value as a company. Next, have a basic and advanced certification system tied to raises and career path opportunities. The concept is there should be a basic certification process for equipment use in your company, driving included. When you're onboarding an employee, you've got to make sure that they know how to use this equipment. It's very dangerous. And it doesn't matter if it's a 2-man auger, it doesn't matter if it's hand pruners, it doesn't matter what it is. I think oftentimes we have a workforce, especially on entry-level positions, that they are just wanting a chance. And in some cases, they might be overstating their experience with certain equipment. It's critical to make sure that on day one, that we are certifying them and making sure they understand how to use this equipment so they don't hurt themselves. And we document that certified training, right? Really critical, because should an issue occur, California is a very litigious state. To make sure that you can go to Cal OSHA with your chin up and say, we're trying. We're really trying to do everything to make sure these employees are safe. And let me show you what we're doing. Let me show you the safety program that we're proud of. And please let us know if we're missing anything. I think that's really critical. Next, make sure that we have a company bonus structure around a mix of safety, retention, and profitability. Now, I was talking to a peer elsewhere in the country, and I think they mentioned one of our larger competitors in the world out there, Yellowstone, I think has a 1/3 of their company bonus in one of their bonus programs structured 1/3 around safety. That's a lot. And that says a lot about that company. That is a multi-million-dollar company in the hundreds. And if they're saying, hey, we care so much about safety that we're not all about profitability, we're not all about efficiency, we're also about safety. This is 1/3 of how we're going to bonus out the company. It says a lot. Next, use pain to tweak behavior, the stop and train. Another example with a company that I talked to was forced driving certification. The concept that if there was a moving violation or there was something caught on, let's say, the GPS system of somebody just speeding too much, somebody just harsh braking too much, that we impact the company in a painful way and say, this guy can't drive for us anymore. He just can't. He's just not safe. We need to meet with him as soon as possible, and we need to conduct safety training with him over and make sure that he understands what he's doing. And we need him to understand that the reason why we're doing this is your behavior. So having that kind of stop and train, having that kind of forced driving certification, I think is really important to make sure that everybody understands how important things are and that it's above profitability. Next, another suggestion would be use a third-party triage company. This is about, instead of you having a supervisor run to the clinic or run to urgent care for minor issues where the guys might be sitting in urgent care for an extended period of time, that you get them a little bit better care. And that might be a third party that will go out to your job site and administer first response for very minor things, minor abrasions, minor things that the employee would feel better taken care of versus sitting in an urgent care room. So I think we need to look at what offers the most care to the employee. The benefit to the company is beyond offering better care to the employee, has everything to do with minimizing recordable issues, right? Bear with me. The next thing I want to cover is best available technologies. One second. So the next thing I want to cover is best available technologies, because I think administering a safety program becomes very difficult. And I think it's really important to leverage technology where we can. An effective safety program should leverage technology to reduce admin time and make information easily available for training and tracking. Some of the programs that I would suggest anybody looking into is Google Forms, Google Classroom for a formalized curriculum. I think that's a fantastic opportunity that we're investigating. Dedicated apps. You can see at the bottom of the screen that we have a dedicated app that we're going to be rolling out to our team to capture all of the issues that come up, all of the incidents that come up, and that have trainings available to them. Finding a third party to create an app is something that's very doable and something I would suggest to everybody with us today. Beyond that, leveraging Google Forms, Allied has an incentive program that's tied to offering Allied bucks for great behavior. And within that, we have an opportunity for employees to go in there and select what's important to them or what they want and how they want to spend their Allied bucks. So a real opportunity there. Beyond that, we are working with a payroll company that has a great HR module that's going to allow us to really track incidents, disciplinary actions, OSHA incidents, and training and house our training and cover job history. And I would really suggest that anybody who's using those external payroll systems, that you really reach out and understand what's available within those systems, because there's a great way to house all things HR, all things safety. And for us, that was the natural fit within that payroll provider. The last pillar is training. In terms of training, you have to have a commitment to frequent trainings. Again, for us, it is a weekly Monday safety meeting where the management tweaks tailgate meeting topics around what has occurred over the past week. So for us, that's all of our operations managers, all of our account managers, all of our Allied support center staff, where we're all on a line and we say, well, this is what occurred last week, or this is what I saw on the news, or this is what they're saying about the weather. This is what's coming up. This is something that I think we might want to talk about. Tweaking on a weekly basis, really important. And we also utilize that again to go over recognizing good behavior and talk about how we might be able to tweak bad behavior. Then we have our weekly Tuesday safety tailgate meeting. The concept there is to be very intentional with a 52-week calendar that aligns with what is relevant for that time of year. When it comes to whether you're design build or your landscape management, once we start working in wet conditions and dark conditions, the job becomes that much more dangerous. Things become heavier when they're wet, whether we're picking up leaves or we're digging in the soil. Things become much more slippery in wet conditions. So if the bulk of us in the Bay Area work with clay soil, the bulk of us work with slopes and topography changes that are a little bit difficult to navigate. We're planting on slopes, we're maintaining on slopes. So the concept of aligning some of those topics around slip and falls in the winter months just makes a lot of sense, and making sure that we're talking about visibility as daylight savings comes around and we're working a little bit more in the dark than we're used to. Really important to align your 52-week calendar with what's relevant. And again, the stop and train, operations and management, they dig in on that. Equipment and safety certification during the onboarding, internal certification program, Allied certified. The concept that beyond a basic equipment training, that we value education so much that we create our own internal certification process, and education is valued and really championed as a company. External safety certification programs can help with safety, whether that is the CLT or CLP program through NALP, or it's the QAL, qualified applicator license through the Department of Pesticide Regulation, same qualified applicator certificate. It's those quarterly barbecue trainings with operations and management. And then it's that annual safety day with everybody, right? So with the little time that we have left, I want to touch on a little bit with COVID-19. Within the last 2 months, we've seen big changes as it relates to Cal OSHA requirements. And I want to identify a few things that I think everybody needs to be aware of. One, you need to have a written program in place, but you need to have a dedicated system of communicating with employees. And you need to be very intentional about that and make sure that it's easy, and in my opinion, that it works for both languages. Beyond that, we need to identify and evaluate COVID hazards. We need to be very intentional about exposure and the environments we work in and how we're mitigating and combating COVID. For us in the landscape management world, that has a lot to do with staggered starts. It has a lot to do with social distancing. It has a lot to do with making sure that we're wearing masks every day. It's making sure that regular or frequently touched surfaces are clean. That's something that we've got to stay ahead of. We need to investigate and respond to COVID-19 cases in the workplace. We need to be intentional about that. We need to track that separately than what we're doing otherwise. We must offer COVID-19 testing at no cost and during work hours to all employees who had potentially been exposed. Within one business day, all employees who may have been exposed need to be notified, and they need to be notified in a very particular way. We've got to be training employees on COVID-19 risks. We need to inform employees about COVID-19 related benefits. We need to make sure that we're physical distancing, that we're providing face coverings, and we got to make sure that those COVID-19 cases are reported in a very specific way. It's immediately reported to CalOSHA, any COVID-related hospitalization, very important, right? Keep a record of all COVID-19 cases. We need to exclude employees with COVID-19 exposed from the workplace for 14 days. Maintain those employees' earnings and everything that goes with that kind of job status. We've got to make sure that they don't lose anything if they're taking time. Positive cases for COVID-19 return to work at least 24 hours. They need to have been under that 100.4 degree threshold for a couple days. Employees may not require a negative COVID test for an employee to return to work. The COVID-19 requirements are complicated, and we could do a full hour just on that. I think it's really critical for everybody to visit the CalOSHA website and make sure that you're adhering to what's required. This presentation is going to be made available, and you can see some of the links below that are meant to help you. I would also suggest everybody look at AB 685. It has additional requirements that need to be looked into. So lastly, I want to make sure that everybody knows that whether you work for Allied or not, please reach out. Everybody at Allied really appreciates working in the landscape industry. We consider everybody in the landscape industry part of our team, part of our family. If we can offer you any support, any advice, if you have advice for us, please, our ears are open. We are humble, we love to help, and we sure like taking advice from folks that just have a good idea. And for me, good ideas come from all walks of life. Some of the best ideas at Allied have come from somebody who might have been working in the cooking industry, and they started working with us on an entry level and just asked a question that we all just didn't ask ourselves over the course of a decade. But all it takes is somebody with a different perspective to say, hey, why do we do this? And what I would suggest is when you find that person, stay in touch with that person. That's somebody who's thinking outside of the box. That's somebody who wants more. That's somebody who wants to know the why. And I think that, again, goes to human nature. And if we can really push that and make sure that our team members understand what we value as companies and what it is to be human and be creative and to share and help and be productive, that is championed. I'm going to leave everybody with this. We have some of the hardest working people that represent everything great about the American dream. I value my job every day in large part because what I think is great about this country is the American dream. And what I mean by that is to really have the opportunity to work hard and really the sky can be the limit in most cases, right? I think the concept of equal opportunity, equal justice, and a sense of inclusion and a sense of teamwork can really get you by with everything. But that doesn't negate accountability. It doesn't negate the concept of getting things done. And that's what this country is about. It's about getting things done, and it's about working together to create something better. So I'm really proud to be part of the landscape industry, and I'm thankful for that. I want to challenge everybody to take some of what you learned today and go to your teams and see if there's just one thing you can do, just something small. And again, we're very humbled to be a part of the landscape industry at Allied Landscape. If I can be of any assistance to you, any help, please reach out. I am currently volunteering with the CLCA in the East Bay chapter. That's a good way to get in touch with me, but please reach out. I'm easy to find on the internet, and I'd be happy to help any one of you. With that, I'm going to say thank you, and we appreciate being part of the CLCA and participating today. Take care, everybody.